Why is it that enlightened masters, such as Eckhart Tolle, have said you don't actually have to forgive? And why is it when you apply this one concept I'm about to share with you in this video, it will completely change the way people relate to you. It will change the people that you attract into your life, or you will be getting a different version of them because of the energy that is activated inside of your body. Now, when I first heard this, I was going through a process of learning as much as I could about a process called Ho'oponopono, which is an ancient Hawaiian practice that has to do with 4 simple statements of I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And these 4 simple statements, they say you're able to clean out your energetic field. It's called cleaning. And even more than that, one of the reasons I was studying this was because I found it so fascinating, the results of the man that modernized it. His name was Dr. Hugh Len. And basically, it was such a crazy, almost quantum physics spooky thing that happened when he began to practice this ancient Hawaiian technique in a mental hospital. What he did is he went to that of a mental hospital, and he was a doctor that was going in there to help, in a way, heal the people or change the energy dynamic that was there. Because what happened is in this medical hospital, or in this insane asylum, that's what it was, there was that of patients where they were very violent. There were people that worked there that would quit often because there was such a chaotic energy in the workplace. There were nurses that were afraid to walk down hallways because that was the kind of energy that was there. And what happened is Dr. Hugh Len went in there, and within a few years, the people that had that were insane, many of them got transferred to different hospitals. Some of them actually, the lesser cases, got released. And there was a complete shift in energy there where there wasn't some crazy high turnover rate, and the whole entire vibe shifted. And what Dr. Hugh Len did is he went into that hospital and he just applied this practice, this 4 simple practice of I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And what he did, though, this is the crazy thing. You would think that he would go in there and maybe he would change and psychoanalyze the people so that he could heal them. He didn't do any of that. In fact, he didn't even talk to the patients one-on-one in some office setting. What he did do, I looked into this because this sounded like, this is why I studied the whole Eckhart Tolle thing, which I'll get back to in a minute, but I found it so fascinating that what he did is he went in and all he did was he did walk around, he did engage with people, but he did not actually psychoanalyze them and coach them and go through some type of therapy with them. Yet the patients within a few years completely transformed the whole entire vibe of this insane asylum. What happened? Well, what he said he did is he did the 4 simple statements and he healed his image of the patients. So instead of him actually psychoanalyzing and healing the patients themselves, he healed the image of them. He took responsibility, saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And as he did that, he cleared this energetic overlay in reality to where, in a way, the version of these people that were in his reality were healed. Were then able to get sent back home or get sent to other hospitals that were less violent or less security. And what he says when you look into these teachings deeper is a similar thing that Eckhart Tolle says. He says that when you look at that of some type of, even a whiteboard, this is the easiest analogy you can use. This is who we really are. We are infinite. We are this blank slate in a way. We are God consciousness. Think of all this as God. We are it all. We are it all. This is who we are. We are infinite. Now, when we start to say, this person did this to me, it starts to put a certain level of form to it. And then we're more likely to actually attract that into our life. That's the crazy thing. And in a funny thing, when I talk about forgiveness, there's different levels of consciousness here that we're going to talk about in this video that will completely shift the way that you relate to other people and the kind of a people you attract into your life. Now, on one hand, forgiveness did help me release a pattern in my life that was in my life on autopilot up until I became aware of it. And you've probably heard the story if you watched my content before, but the energy of when I had a 9-to-5 job selling women's shoes at Nordstrom's, the manager of that department, I worked there for years, was the same personality structure, the same type of narcissistic energy as the ex-stepmom that I had growing up, who was controlling, manipulative, who had this energy of control, where I always felt like I was walking on eggshells. And things weren't fair. That was also very interesting. Even more recently, I've become aware of how often there's this overlaying belief in my reality that certain things aren't fair. And then because of that belief that things aren't fair, I attract things into my life that don't appear to be fair. As I look at this belief and as I question it, that's when then the energies begin to shift. Because our beliefs create our reality. And the unconscious energies active in our life bring to us people that reflect those energies back. So in the 7 to 15 years old, when I had the stepmom that was controlling, 15 years old comes around, I have all this freedom. All of a sudden, I'm allowed to have friends. I'm allowed to go to school activities. I have enough food to eat. All of these things. What then ends up happening is I kept attracting people into my life that reflected back that energy that felt quote unquote safe, tiptoeing around different people. In a weird way, there probably was a form of like that felt safe to have someone in my life that I felt like I had to tiptoe around in order to get by, which is why then I had a manager at Nordstrom's that was the same personality as my ex-stepmom. And for so long, things just weren't fair. I was angry that from 7 to 15, I didn't have much of a childhood. Then literally my junior year of high school was when I was allowed to have friends. It made it where I was like, especially in high school, very socially awkward for the first couple of years. And then when I got that job selling women's shoes, it was like a whole new personality of mine came out. And I was like, why couldn't I have experienced this when I was in high school? My last year of high school, I was a senior. I only took 4 classes. I could have graduated early, but I stayed because I wanted to have a school experience, like a high school experience. But what ended up happening is I kept attracting people like my ex-stepmom into my life until I realized that everything that happened from 7 to 15 years old led to a spiritual awakening. And I understand this one quote as well, which is related to forgiveness, but then we'll go beyond that. So on one hand, forgiveness is right for a certain level of consciousness. There's a higher level to this that changes everything. And that is that people are always doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they're at. So even though someone may hurt you, they've rationalized the hurting. They're not aware of the hurting, they're not aware that necessarily, maybe they're aware it hurts you, but they've just somehow rationalized it from their current level of consciousness. Now, this doesn't make it right, but this does help you understand that people are doing the best they can with what they've got. My ex-stepmom, who was abusive and narcissistic, found out her dad was the same way with her. Remember hearing some stories that were pretty harsh of what she experienced, which maybe explains why she was the way she was with my brother and I. So that was something that kind of like didn't make me so, oh great, I'm so happy I went through this for 7 years, but it did help me understand more. And here's the crazy thing. Within a week of forgiving my ex-stepmom, because I realized that led to my spiritual awakening, that created pressure that allowed me to grow. Within a week of letting go of this energy, that manager at Nordstrom's got fired because the energy left my life. So on one hand, you can say forgiveness works, but what does it mean? And why does Dr. Hugh Land and Eckhart Tolle say kind of the same thing? They say there's nothing to really forgive. Let's look at this. Now, when you even look at your past, you can also use this is a huge healing modality when it comes to healing your past as well. Because when you think of your past, you think of it as something that is set. You think your past is set. When you talk about forgiving the old version of you, remember, the old version of you was doing the best they could with the level of consciousness they're at. The fact that you'd feel guilty or you'd feel different about something you did in the past shows that you've changed. Because the old part of you didn't think there was anything wrong. So you were doing the best you could with the level of consciousness you were at the time. But here's the crazy thing. Here's where Eckhart Tolle and the Dr. Hugh Land thing come into place. This moment right now is all that exists. When you think of this past you, when you think of it, let's say the you when you were 3 years old, the you when you were 6 years old, the you when you were 11 years old, the 22 years old, whatever. These different versions of you, when you say, I did that, did you even do it? Like, think about it. Every moment, cells in your body are dying and being reborn. Every moment's a new moment. Every moment's this now moment right now, but every moment you're new. Every moment you're new. Even if you think you're the same as when you were before, you're creating the illusion that you are the same from before through your insistence of your beliefs. Quantum physics literally shows us that every moment's a new moment. Every moment's a new moment. Every moment you remember something from the past, you take it out of your memory bank. You have a story about it in the present moment that you overlay it, and then you put it back in your memory bank. By the time you've thought of something 1,000, or let's say 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 times, it's a completely different memory. So when you say, I did this in the past, who is the I that actually even did that? Because that I is not who you are now. You're a new you every moment. So the I comes with the built-in meaning that you are the same, which you're already not. You have a new level of awareness. Like, if you feel guilty about something that you did in the past, it means you have a new level of awareness now, because when you did it, you didn't feel guilty. So the new level of consciousness, this new level of awareness, is where you really start to tap into this power of understanding that the forgiveness happens when you let go of believing that's who you are. When you let go of the emotions that tie you to the past. Now remember, you are the blank canvas. You are God. You are everything. Now, when Eckhart Tolle says also you don't need to forgive, what it means is what other people do to you and what even you did to other people, it came from a certain level of unconsciousness. So when you say, I forgive you, that means my identity forgives your identity, but the part that of the person that did that thing to you did it from a certain level of unconscious. It was unconsciousness that did it. You're forgiving the unconsciousness. You're not forgiving them. We are within a collective reality that we're all connected. We're all one consciousness. There are these archetypes within our collective reality like Carl Jung talks about. But in general, this is something that as we shift within ourselves, we then see that other people begin to shift on the outside. This is something that is all about becoming aware of that unconscious energy, and you're making it conscious, and then you're making a new choice about who you are. So when I am forgiving you, who is the I that is forgiving you? We're all one consciousness. Now, this isn't a way of just... The funny thing about Ho'oponopono is that you're taking responsibility. And then people say, well, I'm not going to take responsibility for what someone else did to me. You're taking responsibility as the collective energy for the unconsciousness that's there. It's the unconsciousness that did it. Now, when you look at this, the reason this can be so powerful is because then it depersonalizes the story that has so much momentum. Because then what happens is if you say, for example, for a long time, I had the story that my ex-stepmom was controlling, so I'd attract controlling women into my life that I had to fight against. If I leave that personal story there, it keeps attracting elements from that story. Once I shifted the story, it shifted what I attract. Because remember, you are the blank white canvas of source energy, of God, of the universe. And when you have these kind of, in a way, unhealed things that have happened in the past, what ends up happening is we give things meaning that then we tie to it energetically, we attach to it, and then we attract things into our life that reflect that back. So you don't actually have to forgive because there is no you from the past, even the other person. Like, think about it. The other person that did something to you, like my ex-stepmom, for example, when she did what she did to me, was it the most divine aspect, higher self part of herself that did it? Or was it the traumatized part of herself that did it, that experienced the trauma growing up from her own family? Do you see? It wasn't the person's divine self, higher self that we're all connected to that did it. It was the unconsciousness within herself that did it, from the unconscious that probably came from her dad and her dad's dad and all of that. So it trickled down. But once you bring the conscious out of the unconscious, you become aware of it, you can then make a new choice about who you are. Now, forgiveness, in a way, is the recognition of, in a way, accepting that something happened, but then at the same time, letting go the meaning of it. Because even if you keep the meaning that this person did this to me and it was wrong, you will keep attracting those people into your life to show you what that is, because your beliefs create your reality. What you get to a place to is when you look to your past, there isn't, and with time, this can happen, where you look at your past that used to make you so much triggering within you, so much of this negative energy within you. When you can look at it from a neutral perspective, that's when you've really changed. That's when you've really healed. That's when you've really forgiven. But funny enough, you say you've forgiven, but also you realize there's nothing to be forgiven. When Eckhart Tolle said that in a talk where he said there's nothing to be forgiven,
the real forgiveness happens when it just you realize that ultimately there's nothing to forgive. And that's true forgiveness. There's nothing to forgive.
I think a lot of people are like, what the hell? What do you mean there's nothing to be forgiven? Do you not understand what happened to me? How? What do you mean? But nothing to be forgiven means you take out the interplay between identity and ego. And you realize it was the reflection of unconsciousness. And remember, people are always doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they're at the time. And what happens is that may not make it right, but it does help you understand. And then when you look to yourself, big healing can happen when you look at things that have happened in the past. You go, oh, wow. When I made this rash decision, when I treated this person this way, or you look at it and you realize, wow, the fact that I have a new perspective about it now in the present moment means I've changed. And I realize that version of me isn't even who I am today. There's many versions of you that have been up until this moment right now. You've been your baby version, you've been your young adult version, your teenager version, whatever version of you are right now. You're constantly having the cells in your body die and be reborn to where every 7 years, you're a new you, completely. The only thing that holds you back is the insistence, the unprocessed, repressed energy that stays inside the body. That will keep you locked in your current reality, not knowing why do I keep attracting the same people over and over again. And in a weird way, something to look at is, why do I feel familial? Isn't that funny that word familiar and familial are very similar? Because it feels like family to be around people that maybe are certain personality dynamics. I've known people before that have, I had this friend where she has a dad that's very expressive, and he's just like, so like everything's all about him. And anytime he talks to my friend, that's her dad or whatever, it's like all about him, and that's kind of the energy. And she plays into that, and she like is used to that. But funny enough, all the guys that she attracts into her life are very similar. They're extremely boisterous. It's all about them. And there's this energy of like, and I even remember this person telling me once, they met someone that was just like this. And she goes, oh my God, this person feels like a long lost soul brother. This person feels like family to me. And I was like, yeah, I know. I can see why. Because this person also had that same personality structure. And funny enough, this person ended up like working with this person, that friend that felt like family. And things ended up working out not so well, because there were certain probably energies underneath the surface. Also probably a certain manipulative energy. And then after it happened, and I was kind of the one that was like, oh, how dare I kind of observe that pattern. But that ended up being exactly what happened. Same energy. Because if you don't work on the energy, it continues to be on autopilot. And you continue to attract people to show you things up until you learn it. And you let that energy go. You let the part of you go that needs that energy to feel, so that things feel like family. And many times in my life when I've attracted a certain pattern, I'm like, why? There were certain times I've attracted a certain pattern where then I realize it. And once I wake up to it, it is like, it's very quick normally the way I work through it. Where there was a certain level of, maybe like months ago, there's a certain like manipulative energy that was in my life. And once I became aware of how it was tied to my past, it was like very quick that I realized I had to get this out. And then once I did, it was such a relief. And then there was other smaller versions of that in my life that I became aware of, where I realized I was so tolerant. I was tolerating a certain energy because I was so patient growing up from 7 to 15, and I tolerated a certain energy that there was like almost a tolerant of that energy later on in life, which was, it's always gotten less and less dramatic, where it was like it was the ex-stepmom, then it was the manager, then it's been other people. And as I become aware of it, I clear it out. But the pattern you become aware of. And then you have to become aware of when you look at that pattern, if you're triggered by it, the work isn't complete yet. Because it hasn't been accepted. And in a way, not wanting it, walking around saying, I won't be, no one can manipulate me, no one better manipulate me. If you walk around going, no one better manipulate me, no one better manipulate me, it's hard to say, manipulate me, fast, let's say it fast, that's active in your field. So if you really want to heal, you get to a place to where you observe it and you see it as both equally. It's not better or worse. It's just something that happened that maybe you see the benefit, you change the meaning, and you see how it helped you grow. But that's when you can then let go of the trigger. And when you let go of the trigger, that's when the energy is neutral in your body and you're not going to attract either the good or the bad. To where then you are in a much more magnetic state. But remember, when it comes to who do you forgive, you are an eternal spiritual being in this moment right now, and every time you connect to your past, you change the past. There is no real you. At the time that was you, that's a different version of you. You are a new version of yourself right now, but what you're forgiving in other people is the unconsciousness that happened, and people are always doing the best they can from the level of consciousness they're at. So if you want to change the people you attract into your life, the key is owning your own energy. It's becoming aware of what the triggers are in your life. It's becoming aware of what comes up inside of you when certain things happen. And as you look at that, you observe it, and you realize that you yourself are bringing the unconscious into the conscious. And as you own and take responsibility for how you respond to it, that's when you begin to integrate that into your life. And this takes a lot of self-reflection. This takes a lot of self-inquiry. And this is where then you are able to really transform. If you think about the analogy of a butterfly, this completely changed my perspective of transformation. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly will cocoon itself. And once it gets into its cocoon, it will excrete an enzyme that liquefies itself. And then it reforms itself into the shape of a butterfly. And even after it eventually opens up the cocoon and comes out, it can't fly right away. Has to let itself dry. And once it dries, then it can fly. And the metaphor for our own life of that is that liquefaction process is becoming aware, self-inquiry. What are my beliefs about reality? How am I relating to other people? Who am I? Who are you? What did you do to me? Liquefying that process, that enzyme that you release is the awareness that we're all one consciousness. Allow the divine to help assist you in clearing up this energy. Allow yourself to not get stuck in believing this is who you were, this is who you were, this is who you were, this is who you were. You liquefy yourself by realizing none of this is you anymore. You are who you choose to be in the present moment. And the more you create safety within yourself, the more you create a level of integrity within yourself, the more you create a cocoon inside of yourself to emerge out of. And the power part of transformation is realizing we are all one unity consciousness connected, playing out different dramas best based on the collective unconsciousness. And the more we become aware of these patterns, the more we can then integrate them, the more we can accept. And in that acceptance, we transform. And as we transform, it's like we're inside the cocoon, we start to come out. We then have the ability to fly. So if you want to heal, understand that this is a powerful process you can go through self-awareness, self-inquiry, and opening up your own heart. Now, something I do have now is I have that of a meditation that will show you how to connect to your own inner child, how to heal the inner child inside of yourself to meet the needs of a part of yourself that's stuck in the past. And then how you can then integrate that into your life. It's a very powerful meditation on healing your inner child. If you want to check that out, you go ahead and click the link below. And then other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.